What's going on, everybody? My name is Tyler, and we are just a couple days away, depending on when you watch this, from the Super Bowl. Super Bowl 54 in Miami. Let's just recap how we've gotten here. So, in the wild card round, I predicted that the Bills, Patriots, Saints, and Seahawks would win. I was 1-3 on those picks, with correctly picking the Seahawks, but the Titans, the Texans, and the Vikings also winning. In the divisional round, I predicted that Baltimore and Houston would win their respective games, and Green Bay and San Francisco would win theirs. I was 2-2 on those games, correctly predicting Green Bay and San Francisco, but Tennessee and Kansas City pulled out the wins on the AFC side. And then finally, on Championship Sunday just a couple weeks ago, I correctly predicted that both Kansas City and San Francisco would represent their respective conferences in Super Bowl 54. That makes me 5-5 on the postseason, so I could finish either one game above 500 or one game below, depending on the outcome of the Super Bowl. But let's not rush to that prediction. As you might have guessed, we're going to be talking about the Super Bowl. I'll preview both teams, what they need to do to win, and then ultimately make my prediction as to who will win Super Bowl 54 on Sunday afternoon. With all that out of the way, let's get it started. Looking at San Francisco first, the Niners are making their first Super Bowl appearance since 2013, where they lost to the Ravens. They're looking to win their sixth Super Bowl in franchise history. This is the third time they have played. They've won 3 Super Bowls in Miami, if I'm not mistaken. 2 or 3, I could be wrong on that. The 49ers have really turned things around this season, though. Last year, they were 4-12. Their running game was subpar. Jimmy Garoppolo had that torn ACL injury. And as a team, they only had 2 interceptions and 7 total takeaways and sacked the opposing quarterback 37 times. This season, San Francisco has a 3-headed monster at running back with Raheem Mostert, Tevin Coleman, and Matt Breida. Garoppolo has played very solidly all season long coming off the injury. The team on defense has forced 27 turnovers, and as a whole, they've picked off the opposing quarterback 12 times, and have just been one of the top defenses in the entire league. They have the number 1 pass defense in the NFL, leading to a 13-3 record and a top seed in the NFC. And they play a complementary style of football, solid in all facets of the game, offense, defense, and special teams. Their defense has been their bread and butter this season. Robert Saleh, when people were calling for his head to be fired, Kyle Shanahan remained trustful in his defensive coordinator. They got the nice pieces John Lynch did, signing Richard Sherman a couple years ago, drafting Nick Bosa, getting Kawan Alexander, Dee Ford, etc. And all in all, they have the number 1 pass defense in the entire NFL during the regular season, number 2 defense overall. And that will be crucial as Kansas City, as we all know, has that high, potent passing offense, number 5 in the NFL during the regular season. This team doesn't have a whole lot of weaknesses, but there are some matchups that can be exploited. With that Kansas City passing game being so high octane, with guys like Tyreek Hill, Sammy Watkins, Demarcus Robinson, Travis Kelce, etc., they're just really fast and dynamic, and that can test the 49ers secondary. Richard Sherman is not what he once was. He's still a top corner, but Tyreek Hill is a monster. We'll say that straight up. And when you have the top tight end, if you saw my top tight ends video, Travis Kelce is the number 1 tight end, in my opinion, in the entire NFL. He will be a matchup nightmare for the San Francisco defense. Fortunately for San Francisco, they don't have to worry about the run game, as Patrick Mahomes has led the team in rushing both of their playoff games. And then it will be on the guys on the front 7, Nick Bosa, Eric Armstead, DeForest Buckner, and co., to get pressure on Patrick Mahomes, to rush him into making throws he doesn't want to make the offensive line collapse in on him to prevent him from scrambling, because Mahomes, we've seen in his so far young career, is very good at scrambling as a scrambling quarterback. He can make things happen with his legs, and then with that electric arm of his, will throw the ball downfield, regardless of if he's set or not. So if they can just collapse the offensive line onto Patrick Mahomes, force him to make throws that he normally doesn't want to make, and just rush him, they could have success in this game. What this team is also very good at, and we've seen it all postseason, is running the football. In the divisional round against Minnesota, Tevin Coleman had 105 yards and 2 touchdowns. And then in the championship round, it was Raheem Mostert having himself a career day, rushing for the ball 29 times for 220 yards and 4 TDs. Although statistically Kansas City's run defense was one of the weaker ones in the NFL during the regular season, they were able to hold Derrick Henry, the league's leading rusher, to just 69 yards. That means the Niners running back unit and their offensive line are going to have their best game of the year. Against Green Bay, Jimmy Garoppolo threw the ball only 8 times for 77 yards. If San Francisco wants to win, I don't think that they can just have Garoppolo throw so many few passes and rely on the run game, because this is going to come down to time of possession. And sure, the Kansas City Chiefs, they might not have the ball for a whole lot, but they're so quick on offense that they can put up points and not have the time of possession. So what San Francisco needs to do, they need to have effective possessions every single time they have the ball. Ultimately, what they need to do is a couple things. Control both lines, the offensive and the defensive line. Get pressure on Mahomes on the defensive side and let the running game continue to ride the wave that they currently are on in the hot streak that they have had so far this postseason. The second thing is just don't get flustered. Kansas City, all season long, they'll make a big play which can change the tide of the game. The San Francisco defense just can't get flustered when Mahomes inevitably breaks loose, throws a big pass down to Tyreek Hill or Travis Kelce or whomever, and let that ruin their whole game plan. So ultimately, I think the X factor in this game is going to be Raheem Mostert, because after such a phenomenal performance against Green Bay, the running game needs to get going. And especially if Tevin Coleman, he has been limited in practice the past couple of days with that shoulder injury, which he suffered in the NFC Championship. It's going to be on Mostert. If he can get the running game gets going, the opportunities will open up for Jimmy G to find George Kittle, Deebo Samuel, and Emmanuel Sanders. Shifting gears to Kansas City, after a crushing defeat last season in overtime, lost to the Patriots in the AFC Championship, Kansas City has really bounced back this season. The Chiefs started the year 4-0, hit a rough patch where they went 1-3 in their next four. Patrick Mahomes got hurt in Week 7 against Denver and missed 2 games, both of which KC won. He then returned against Tennessee. Wow, words are hard today. What can I say? In a Week 10 loss. And after that loss, however, though, Kansas City has been on a roll. They won their final 6 regular season games and now currently ride an 8-game winning streak. All of this has led Mahomes and co. to their first Super Bowl since they won it all in Super Bowl IV 50 years ago. This postseason, Mahomes has been phenomenal. He has thrown for 615 yards, 8 touchdowns, and 0 interceptions, completed 46 of 70 passes, and he's also been the team's leading rusher during the playoffs, rushing for 106 yards and a touchdown. Since Mahomes has become the starter for Kansas City toward the end of over a year ago at this point, they are 27-8, and in those 8 losses, they have lost by a combined 36 points. He's just been a phenomenal player, and he will rule this league for years to come. It's my number one quarterback my number one quarterback in my top 10 list if you watched that video. If you haven't, go watch it. It's on YouTube. After this one, of course. It helps that he has some really good options. Catching the ball, Tyreek Hill, Travis Kelce, 2 of the top players at their respective positions. And neither of those guys have even been the team's top receiver in the postseason. It's been Sammy Watkins. He leads all pass catchers with 190 receiving yards. He's found the end zone once and has caught 9 passes. So there are so many options for Mahomes in this passing game. Andy Reid does a really good job with getting the best out of the guys on offense, and so does Eric Bieniemy, the offensive coordinator. Reid, this could be a redemption story. He has been on a doorstep so many times in his career as a head coach, never has won the Super Bowl. He lost against New England back in 2004, I think it's 2005. Yeah, 2005. Sorry, I had to think of the date. I was only 5 years old. What can I say? 2005, when he was coaching the Eagles, that was the game where Terrell Owens had that broken leg, wasn't sure if he was going to play, and they just came up a little bit short. In their 2 playoff games so far this postseason, the issue has been their defense. They've allowed a total of 55 points, 41 of which have came in the first half. They've only forced 1 turnover this postseason, and they might need to force a couple turnovers on San Francisco to just to give themselves a better chance at winning this game. Because San Francisco is going to, like I said, probably run the ball a lot, rule the time of possession battle. So if they could just hold on to the ball and force a couple turnovers, they could really open this game up for them. Kansas City can. The other issue with this team has been red zone offense. Ironically, this team's so good on offense, but they can't execute in the red zone, as they've only scored a touchdown on 54% of their trips into the red zone during the regular season. That's one of the lower margins in the NFL. Teams that lose Super Bowl fail to convert in the red zone. We've seen it in times past. Ultimately, I think if Kansas City wants to win, they're going to have to ride Patrick Mahomes for as long as he will carry them, because the running game for KC just is non-existent. So there's no point in trying to keep the defense honest. Everyone knows that Kansas City is just going to fire the ball whenever they can. So they'll also just need to slow down the San Francisco running game for obvious reasons. Their X factor is actually a group of guys. It's the offensive line. If they can protect Mahomes, keep him upright, it'll be a long day for San Francisco. Like I said, if Mahomes is rushed to make throws that he doesn't want to make, it just won't go well for Kansas City. But if he has time in the pocket or needs to even scramble a little bit, Mahomes can more often than not make a play for Kansas City. Ultimately, I think this will be a great game. Compared to last year, it was only 13-3. I think it was like 3-0 at halftime in Super Bowl 53. But in the end, I have the 49ers pulling out the victory in this one. I just don't trust the KC offensive line to protect Patrick Mahomes and give him enough time to throw the ball. This defense has been phenomenal all season. You know the saying, defense wins championships. I think that will be the case in this one. San Francisco, they win their 6th Super Bowl in franchise history by a score of 35-27. So, what do y'all think? Who is going to win Super Bowl 54 on Sunday? Let me know in the comment section below your predictions, your scores. Do you agree with me? Do you disagree with me? I hope you've enjoyed my previewing of the NFL postseason every round. Now that the NFL season is finally coming to an end, I got some nice things planned. We're going to talk a little basketball. We're going to talk a little golf, maybe a little baseball, and then a bunch of other stuff, things that I am interested in. So stay tuned for that. Thank you so much for watching, and enjoy the big game.